just a little bit. We got Toby Edwards. We're going to be talking to a gentleman named Stephen Brooks, and who has written a book about more or less a sunny place for shady people. It has to do with Toby's mom. Was she with sheriff or police? Sheriff's department, and was killed. Well, wasn't killed. She was murdered back in what year? 76.
76.
76. And well, Toby's been fighting this war for ever since he's a little kid, and we're going to see what's going on. We're going to find out where it's at with the Hot Springs County. They have a brand new prosecuting attorney who he's going to be talking to in the next couple of weeks. There's some TV shows looking at maybe coming to do the case. So we'll just give you an update of what's going on with Toby. Our phone number is 525-3313, and we'll be talking to Stephen when we come back. And you're listening to KZNG 1340. KZNG 1340 right here in Hot Springs on a beautiful, well, it's cloudy, overcast, I guess a little bit, but it's supposed to rain 20% later today. Right now we're going to visit with Toby Edwards. Good morning, Toby.
Good morning.
And on the line with me is Stephen Brooks. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing wonderful today. And you?
Great. Now you're in Georgia?
Yes, St. Simon's Island.
Oh, that sounds nice. You're out in the middle of nowhere in an island fishing every day, doing nothing?
Oh, no, not doing nothing. It's nice except during hurricane season.
Yes, that's true. Okay, I'm going to talk to Toby just for a minute. Toby, your mother was murdered back in 74?
76.
76. Give a little bit of update for folks, and then we're going to get into Stephen because he's written a book that's a fiction, but kind of around.
All right. My mother was a dispatcher for the Garden County Sheriff's Department. She came up missing August 22nd of 1976. They found her skeletal remains on Valentine's Day in 1977, and just been 38 years of trying to get justice served.
More or less we think we know who did it?
Correct. There was an officer that was charged, but the charges were dropped. Most of the evidence was deemed hearsay or circumstantial.
And you're trying to get the body
exhumed
for
DNA testing.
And think what you watch on CNN and all the TV things and the crime courses, what they can figure out what happened.
I think every stone needs to be turned over and looked at.
And so far, it's been a stone wall for you.
In my opinion, yes.
Okay, Stephen. Now you come in. You have written a book called "A Sunny Place for Shady People." Now your background is you're from Hot Springs.
Yes, I am. I was born and raised there.
And you got into the book business because?
I started writing about all my travels around the world with the U.S. Treasury Department. And then I happened to be speaking to a local book club there called the Book Babes. And they suggested I write about some of the mysterious disappearances around Hot Springs. And I thought about it. Then this case would always be in the back of my mind since I started my career with the Hot Springs Police Department.
Okay, now you started in 79?
Yes, July.
So, okay, so this would have been a couple years after, 3 years after the murder.
Yes.
And you had heard about the murder?
Yes, of course in the news when I was in college in the 70s, then when I started with the PD, people, you hear hushed tones about different cases, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. So you got, when did you decide to get into it a little bit further?
After that presentation of my first book, I got to thinking about it, and I said this would be a good one to do, but I have to be very careful because I worked with and are friends with some of the people who worked with the former officer who was arrested for.
What was it? The one that was arrested?
Thurman Abernathy.
What?
Abernathy.
Abernathy. Okay. What's his first name?
Thurman.
Thurman, because there's lots of Abernathys around. Okay, Thurman Abernathy. 70-some years old now?
He should be around in the 70s.
Okay. And now, when you came back, did you come back to talk to different people about the book?
Yes.
Interviews and that?
Yeah, I tried to interview some folks, but a lot of people just didn't want to talk about it.
Because?
It's still,
Your gut feeling.
the gut feeling is still the typical Southern politics, especially there in Hot Springs. I spent a week talking, going out to the crime scene. And matter of fact, a former car partner of mine, I told him what I was doing. He said, you need to be really careful when you're out there on Jack Mountain by yourself.
Really? Now, did you know Abernathy? Did you go visit with him?
No, I never could connect with him.
Okay. Now, what about Barlow, the sheriff that was at the time?
No, Sheriff Barlow and I have just communicated in generic messages about, I know how he feels and his opinion.
Yeah, well, he's absolutely in the opinion that this guy did it.
Well, if you look at the preponderance of the evidence, that's where it would lead to. And today, given the facts of the case, such as with the Petersons, they were convicted of murder on simple circumstantial evidence.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing physically tying them to the deaths of their wives.
Okay. Now, what's your book about? Is it all about the case?
It's predominantly it's a case. I read everything I could get. Interviewed the last state police investigator, Glenn Sly. Glenn and I have known each other for years. Other people, and read everything, and a lot of the dialogue is from the depositions, is from the interviews, from the court records, the autopsy report, and what I did, where the gaps are, what's unknown or unsettled, is where the fiction comes in.
Okay. How's the book been received?
So far, they've been selling from Southeast Georgia to Las Vegas, and all reviews are very popular. I just haven't gotten very many comments about them from people in Hot Springs.
Okay. Well, I didn't know you'd written a book. I mean,
That was number 5.
oh, this is your 5th book.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how would somebody get the book if they want to find out the ins and outs of the story? But other than talking to Toby, what he's been putting on Facebook and that, how do they get your book?
They can go. It's currently on Amazon.
Uh-huh.
All of them are. I have a website. Someone wants a signed copy of the book. It's www.stephenwbrooks.com, all one word. Then I have a website. But also they can search Facebook on stephenwbrooks.com, and I have a page dedicated to the development of that book.
Okay. How long did it take you to write it?
About 2 years.
Well, that long. Okay. From your, you were in the police department. What was your duty? What did you do?
I was a patrolman.
Patrolman. After all the stuff you have looked at and studied about the case, what's your opinion?
My opinion is that, based on the circumstantial evidence, that he would be convicted.
And did you find out why it got thrown out?
A lot of the cases built on hearsay, and the judge there in Hot Springs County would not allow it. But there are several exceptions to the hearsay rule. I think if it was presented again to a grand jury, a lot of it would get in.
Okay. Do you think there's any way to bring justice to this thing?
If they would allow exhumation for the DNA that was not available in 1976, I would think so. If it is there, because it'd still be there.
Okay.
And if they would present it to a grand jury and just let justice take its course, my personal opinion is they'd be convicted.
Okay. And we're going to get back into the story with Toby here in just a minute. But the book is called A Sunny Place for Shady People. And you're talking about Hot Springs. You lived here for how long?
32 years. Born and raised there. I left in 1987 to go to work as an anti-terrorism specialist for the U.S. Treasury Department.
How was that? But that was fun.
Oh, it was fun. That's how the first books around my world travel. I traveled the globe for any number of years. And I just started documenting the places I'd gone and fictionalized some of the people I've met.
Okay, we're going to find out how Linda was found by accident, isn't that right?
Correct.
By some hunters or somebody walking up in the woods?
Some fox hunters.
And did the foxes find her?
I'm sure the foxes did too.
Okay. All right, anything you want to say, Stephen?
No, I just hope that people listening, because I mentioned it in the foreword and in the closing of the book, I hope the book would ring someone's memory or their conscience and to come forward and either to the state police, the local FBI office, or just come forward. I think Thurman now is 73. His wife has passed away. I mean, it's time. It's time for justice to be served, for Toby and the other extended family to have some closure.
Some closure, yeah. Okay. All righty, I appreciate you. Have fun down in Georgia. I hope it rains on you today.
So do I.
Oh, you need rain?
Yeah, we do. It's going to rain all weekend.
Oh, good. Well, Hawaii's going to get rained on too, it looks like. All right. We've had more rain than we know what to do this year. It's just been the rainiest season, but it's been, we've hit 95 once this year. Normally it's 114 2 years ago on this day.
I remember that. I remember that being that hot, wearing the bulletproof vest,
Oh, shit.
all that gear. Don't miss that at all.
Not this at all. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Go to Amazon and go to the webpage, Stephen W. Brooks, and go to Facebook, and it's Stephen W. Brooks and www.stephenwbrooks.com. All righty. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Appreciate you. Were you surprised when you found out he was writing a book? Did he contact you before?
He did contact me, and asked if it was okay, and of course I said yes, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I was happy.
You haven't read it.
I've read the introduction. The reason why I haven't read it any more than that is it's just difficult for me to read. But what I read was well written.
You've been fighting this for a long time.
Coming up this August 22nd, it'll be 38 years.
38 years. Now you were how old when your mom was murdered?
I was 5, about to turn 6.
Hard to remember.
Bits and pieces, but I remember a lot more than what a lot of people think I should remember. I mean, nobody wants to really think a 5-year-old can remember horrible stuff, and I do remember some horrible stuff.
And you have siblings?
Correct. I have one sister. She's a year and a half younger than I am. I have an older brother, but he's passed on. But my sister and I both want closure, justice.
Does your sister live here still? Or,
Correct. And well, she actually lives in Hot Spring County, but she lives around.
okay. But you could not get the prosecuting attorney in Hot Springs County to reopen the case, just to assume have the body raised.
Right. Correct.
Because part of the political game. What do you feel?
We signed papers to exhume the body back in the early 2000s, and a couple months after we had signed the paperwork, they told us they'd have to send, since the body was, the remains were buried here in Garland County, they'd have to send it over to the prosecuting attorney to get it signed off, to get an okay.
Here?
Correct, to have the remains removed. When we called back a couple of months after we had signed the paperwork, we were told that the paperwork was already here waiting to be signed. And so we thought, well, we'll give it another month, see what happens. And they said that after another month, we called the Hot Spring County prosecuting attorney in, and they said that the paperwork was still over here. So we called the Garland County prosecutor, and they said they'd been waiting on it. They hadn't seen hide nor hair of it. So they'd never seen the paperwork at all. But we were told that it was already sent over here.
Okay. So what did they say when they haven't got it? Did they
They
say, I'm
said-
gonna come get it and I'll hand carry it over here?
No, they just, when we called back to the Hot Spring County prosecuting attorney and informed them that we knew that the paperwork wasn't over in Garland County, he simply stated, I'll get to it when I get to it, and hung up the phone.
Be back in just a moment, KZNG 1340. Toby Edwards is my guest, and Toby's mother was murdered in 1976. She was, what was her duty?
She was a dispatcher.
It's almost like the case up in the Hot Springs Village. You know?
Right.
I mean, truthfully, dating another officer, and I don't know if the other guy was an officer or not up in the village.
I don't know that.
I don't remember. But your mom was dating this gentleman, Abernathy, and they were going out, had a fight,
Correct.
and Was she going to work or coming back? Give us the beginning a little bit. We got a couple minutes.
Well, what I remember of the fight, we were in what used to be Piggly Wiggly at the 72-70 split, and I remember her. I didn't pay too much attention to the argument until it boiled over, and she yelled, "This baby has as much right to live as anybody else."
So your mom was pregnant?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's when I looked at her and I said, "Mama, are you," something to the effect of, "Are you gonna have a baby," or something like that. And she turned to the Thurman and told him that we can't discuss this right here with the kids. And that essentially ended that argument right there.
That was the night she...
That was a couple nights prior to that, and then last night we saw her. It was August 21st, and that was a Saturday night then. And I saw her late at night. She came in. It was about...
After work?
Well, she wasn't working that day that I know of. We were actually at a babysitter's house, and then when we came home, where we were staying, we were in between houses at that point. She came in late at night, and I was supposed to be asleep, but I wasn't. And she told me to go back to sleep, and I said, "Well, can I turn on the TV?" And I tried to get her to stay, but she said she had to go do something, and then that was the last night I ever saw her.
And how long did it take before they... I mean, what did you and your sister, I guess, what did you guys do at the time? I mean,
Well,
get handed from person to person?
Actually, the next morning, on Sunday morning, we were supposed to go to, picked up by a church bus and go to church, and my dad was going to pick us up from the church. And the church bus did come by, knocked on the door, and the lady we were staying with came back to the room, our bedroom, and said, "Where's your mama?" I said, "She never came back home." And so she went back to the church bus and said that, the people from the church bus, and told them that we weren't going to go any goat this morning or that morning. And later on that afternoon, we went to a lady named Sarah Edwards, no relation, but she was a dispatcher for Troop K. We went to her house, and then my dad picked us up sometime later that day.
Your mom and dad were divorced?
Correct.
Okay.
They had been divorced for a couple of years.
Okay. So you stayed with your dad after your mom disappeared?
Correct.
Okay. Because I didn't know if dad was there, so I didn't know if you were going to get left out, just sitting out by the side of the road the rest of your life.
No.
Wasn't too much fun. Has he tried to find out what the devil's going on?
Oh, yes, he did his best. I mean, in fact, Leon Barlow did his best as well. I mean,
You got people on your side fighting. And we're going to come back in the next half hour and talk about, there's television shows now that are doing all this stuff. They were in Malvern not long ago, so we'll come back. Rumor has it. We'll be back in just a couple minutes on KZNG 1340 right here in Hot Springs. Toby Edwards, my guest. Toby Edwards is my guest. Toby's mom was killed, wasn't in the line of duty because she wasn't working, but was a dispatcher for the sheriff's department here back in the 70s. How long had she been a dispatcher?
in between 6 months and a year.
So fairly new. And mom and dad were divorced, so she was dating this Abernathy.
Correct.
And then got in a fight. She became pregnant, I assume. Was Abernathy, was he married at the time?
Correct, he was.
Oh, so there's a little bit more circumstantial evidence.
Correct.
He wanted her not to keep the baby.
Correct.
And she said no.
Right. He didn't want, well, obviously he didn't want people finding out, but he was about to be promoted. In fact, he was promoted approximately the week after she came up missing. So that was one of the things. He figured it would mess up his promotion, or at least that's what I heard. And he just didn't want people looking bad at, at him.
Now what happened when he got arrested?
As far as...
As him, yeah.
He bonded out that day.
Okay. Now did he lose his job?
No, suspended him.
Until it was, so now how long did it go through the courts and before they threw it out?
Let's see, approximately from 77 to 79, middle of 79.
So 2 years, so he was suspended for 2 years. Did he go back to the police department?
Correct, for approximately 3 or 4 months or so. From what I understand, there were several officers who did not want to work with him anymore. Obviously, that gives any police department or sheriff's department, any law enforcement agency a bad name, and you know, it's just bad. I mean,
So do you know what he did after he left the police department?
no, not really.
Okay. Now, there's all these criminal cases on TV, you know, with the cold case, I think it's called. Have you contacted cold case?
I had when the channel A&E had cold cases on it in the early 2000s. I did have an email from them, and they were interested in doing a segment on my mother, but I never could get a yes or a no from the then prosecuting attorney.
Okay, now what about the new cold case people that are on?
The Cold Justice, I believe
Cold
is,
Justice.
yeah, on TNT. If I'm not mistaken, I've looked at that link several times as far as trying to submit my mother's
Right.
case, and it tells me I have to be a law enforcement agency before, you know, to submit, before they will review that particular case.
I'd send it in anyhow. You know, just throw it in their face and say, look, we're being stonewalled. You know, so I can't get them to give you a call. Now, let's talk about the prosecuting attorney in Hot Springs, in Malvern is where it's at, isn't it?
Correct.
Now, they're having a new one put in.
There is a new one coming in January, and I'm
A lady.
a lady.
Now, does she know about your case? Have you ever visited with her?
That's what right now she's a deputy.
Prosecuting attorney.
Correct. And I'm hoping here within a couple of weeks to be calling her and trying to set up an appointment to come in and talk with her and see where she's at with it, or you know, if she's willing to do anything.
Or if she knows about it.
Correct.
I assume she knows about it.
I would hope so.
Now, when's the last time you had any contact with the prosecuting attorney over there?
Well, the last time I signed paperwork as far as, that was the deputy prosecuting attorney, that was Richard Garrett then. And if, you know Dan Harmon, that was Dan Harmon's right-hand man back in the day. So that was 2001, early 2000s. I briefly met the prosecuting attorney, Eddie Easley, then. And then my sister and I went and signed the paperwork for exhumation. And then our contact was primarily through Richard Garrett. When phone calls were left with Eddie Easley, none of them were returned.
What's the big deal?
I
I mean, it's 30 years later, for God's sakes.
have no clue. I would think that all those people would be ready to get it off their chest.
Now, have you had any contact with anybody that's been involved with it in the last year or so? I mean, I know Mr. Barlow, the sheriff was in here and says, we know who did it.
Right.
You know, I don't think he's got any claim whatsoever that's who did it.
Right. But as far as him, no, not anybody else. It's just, you know, when you become stonewalled to a point, you know, you kind of got to wait for something new or some other avenue to take. I mean, and
It's been 12 years since you've really been
Well,
able to get in contact with some of these things.
he's been, well, he was the prosecutor is now the judge over there, so even if it came before him, he would have to recuse himself because he was involved as the prosecuting attorney, so it would have to be a different judge, period.
Well, which is fine with you.
Definitely.
The one that's there now ain't done you any good.
Right.
Hadn't helped at all.
Right.
Gee, my cricket. Now, if somebody knows something about the case, you think there's still somebody out there that knows what happened?
Yes, definitely.
He's talked to somebody.
Correct. If they have any information, you can call the Garland County Sheriff's Department.
What you need to do is find out if somebody saw or heard or knew that she was murdered in Garland County.
Right.
It's a whole new light on the case.
Correct. The jurisdiction would then fall on Garland County.
Now, for you to exhume the body, it's going to cost you $10,000, $12,000, $15,000,
Correct.
which you don't have.
Well, correct, and it says justice for all. It doesn't say each individual victim has to pay for, their justice, even though, I guess sometimes that has happened, but I don't feel like I should.
And what they need to do is, if the body is exhumed, then they have to send all the stuff away. Good morning, on the B&A Heating on Hotline.
I don't know if it'll help him at all, but I went through a case similar to this with the Diamond Head and with the chief of police there, and they would not fire him. Once the case went through federal court for about a year, they threw it out. Then after that happened, they did catch him doing the same thing with other people. So I don't know if that'll help or not, but he was licensed as Diamond Head through Garland County. So it's a real big mess, and even the judge here, Judge Owen, knows all about it.
Yeah.
She's a friend of ours, but it was a similar thing with I was dispatcher.
Right, yeah, it happened, the guys down in Louisiana arrested on something else, if I remember right, but yeah, it's following through. We can't even get the case opened.
This was several women were involved in, but they wouldn't even testify
Yeah.
in federal court.
Yeah, people are being too quiet. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we hope you find something out. We gotta take a break. Our phone number is 525-3313. Okay, we got a couple minutes. What help do you need?
Somebody come forward.
Do you think that's gonna happen? Do you think you'll know what the hell happened before this guy dies?
We hope so. We hope to get closure. I mean,
You've been working on it for how many years?
38 years,
It's in your mind every day?
pretty much.
You do a blog?
I post to Facebook every day. And every day except for holidays, I pretty much do something else on a holiday. But this time around, I restarted. Once I get to the end of all the stuff I have, I'll start back over at the beginning. And this time around, I have new documents that I haven't, that I went to a courthouse and got copies of, and I've scanned them and made images. And so this time I'll have, like, for instance, I'll have subpoenas, and I think there's like 26 subpoenas, and I haven't ever posted those. So, but
There's people that know what happened, just gotta get them to talk.
correct.
That's the bottom line. All right, and don't forget, get the book. And the book is called A Sunny Place for Shady People. And you can get it by going to www.stephen W. Brooks with an S, all one word.com. And you can read about, and it's a story based over your mom with some fictional stuff in it, but it's pretty much the story.
Correct.
All right, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Keep us informed.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.